Warm welcome to everyone who's attending this talk, especially Mrs. Smriti Khanna, the Vice Principal of Sunbeam Mughalsarai. Uh, Students of Sunbeam Mughalsarai, I can see some students from DPS as well and Sunbeam Academy, Samne Ghat. So a very warm welcome to all of you. And without further ado, I would straight away want to welcome Dr. Kavita Shah so that we can start with the session.
Namaskar.
Over to you, Dr. Kavita Shah, please.
Okay. So thank you, Dhaval. And of course, I was just listening to Umangji also. So thank you all for giving this opportunity for sharing some of my views regarding air pollution with the students and the faculty members of the three very coveted schools of Varanasi. And to begin with, I would like to go into the presentation mode because we have young students with us, as I am told, from different classes. And they may not be, all of them may not be aware very much about the air quality and what air quality index is about. So before I go ahead, I would like to go into the presentation mode. So can I take a second, Dhaval, just to switch over?
Yes, sure, ma'am. Just before we begin, I would request Prateek to please start the YouTube live. Prateek, please let us know once
There
you're.
is some issue in the YouTube live. I'm recording the session and I'll upload it to YouTube.
Sure, no problem. So, are we good to go?
We are good to go.
Great. Please,
So I'm
please continue, ma'am.
shall I share my screen?
Sure, sure, ma'am.
Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, we can see it now.
Okay. So you can see the slides.
Yes, we can see it now.
Right. All right. So, friends, today when we are in a state COVID pandemic, what we see all around us that air and air quality is the time what we are talking about. And it is very difficult to understand what actually we are talking about in terms of air pollution. So when we look at the different aspects of or different elements of the act, we know is that we are all made up of panchatattva, that is five main elements, which includes, of course, the akash, sky, vayu, which is air, jal, water, agni, which is fire element, and prithvi, which is earth, land, or soil. So of these five very essential components, it is the air which is the first element through which we breathe. So whenever life originates on earth, the person has to first breathe. And once the breathing is there in the air, then only the life starts or the life cycle starts of any individual, any living organism. So it is basically a confluence of all these five elements which undergo a good balance in such a way that the life can go on easily and in a very systematic and a healthy manner. But if we play with any of these elements, what we actually do is that we distort or cause a disproportion. Disproportion means something will be high, something will be less. So if we look at these concentration, we lead into a situation where all the components are not in a balance, and as a result we see that the pollution exists or some imbalances exist. So when we talk about pollution, we talk about the different gaseous composition in the troposphere, and these tropospheric gases when become imbalanced, then we say that yes, air is polluted not only around us but in the entire atmosphere. Different health effects when we look at pollution in general. We know that water pollution causes, stomach diseases, bacterial, pancreatic diseases, and so on. Soil contamination leads to many other risks like cancer and etc. And over and above, because air is the mode which is all the time in contact with the human body. So what we are finding is that most of the ailments are associated with our air breathing, or what we say is that when we look at the air pollution, all the aspects, they enter into us through our lungs. So it is the lungs which is first affected due to air pollution, and that is where the breathing capacity decreases, and gradually we enter into state of illness. If we look at air, it is powerful source to sustain life. Air quality, of course, affects the lives of people. And it is the composition of these gases, which I was just telling, which consists of nitrogen 78%, oxygen roughly 21%, argon, krypton, and water vapor in the atmosphere. Of course, carbon dioxide also, what we look at is 0.3%, 0.038%. And what we are actually looking at, it is the composition or the balance of all these, which I was just talking about, of these gases in the atmosphere, which actually helps the human life. This is something just for the we know, even in the literary world, even in the idioms, what we say, we use vayu in different aspects, like some of the muhavra, which is given here, sarsarahat hona, we all know, sai sai karna, hawa se batein karna. So most of us know that these are some very common idioms which is everyday used in our day-to-day life, and we don't realize the impact of vayu or hawa in our literary. So it is just for the bringing it to the students. Now, if we look at the air pollution, it has become a threat to the ecosystem. Because when we talk of an ecosystem, we talk of a coordinated existence of not only human being, but also existence of our trees, lakes, crops, animals, and so on. And all the living and non-living objects on this earth, they have to be in a harmony. And when we talk about this, it is the ecosystem that we address, and this ecosystem is under threat. So when there is air pollution, what happens? We can see there is acid rain. Most of the students must have been listening about acid rain formation, damages of the ozone layer. These have been very commonly, taught over, and people are now aware with these terms. But when these happens, what happens? They in turn impact a lot of lives on the earth. And this is why about 3 million people, in fact, today morning when I saw the statistics was 4.5 million people which die every year due to air pollution. So it's a huge number. If you look at the annual global death, simply by pollution of the air, we have such a large number of people dying every year. And that is why it is a matter of concern. Last year, the World Environment Day was actually dedicated to air pollution. And this was why, because air pollution has become, in a way, an ecocide. When we look at, we talk about so many deaths because of air, then it is something what we are calling as an ecocide. And the world is facing about 7 million premature deaths due to respiratory, cardiovascular diseases, like and cancers and so on. Acid rain due to greenhouse effects, ozone depletion, ocean acidification, a very, very important aspect where a very important aspect where we look at a decrease in water pH and understand that life of a human being has, or any component on the earth has more than 70% water. So if the water pH changes, there is a lot of either acidity or alkalinity. And when this happens, the total balance of human physiology changes. And that again leads to n number of health diseases. So open ocean acidification has also led to, indirectly, as a result, decrease in water pH because of acid rains and ocean acidification due to air pollution. And as a result, the overall impact of the marine life has also been affected. Then, of course, we all have been hearing about acid rain causing yellowing of Taj and deterioration of monuments. So deterioration of monuments, heritage buildings, and many other similar kind of impacts have been seen overall throughout the globe. So air pollution has not only been, was in fact pre-COVID period, air pollution was already taken as one of the very major challenges to address when we talk about the environmental pollution and when we talk about the human well-being. So air pollution was considered as the World Environment Day theme for last year. But with COVID, this has become more strengthened. And what we see is that This morning, when we looked at the, I was just trying to understand the air pollution index of Lucknow, city of Lucknow, which is capital of Uttar Pradesh, which is where we are directly associated with. And what you see is that it is the air quality or air pollution level is hazardous. So hazardous means PM US, according to the United States Air Quality Index, the air quality index is supposed to be 342 and the main pollutant is PM10. So the hazardous status has come for city like Lucknow. And if we look at the different components, that is PM 2.5, PM10, ozone, nitric oxide, sulfur oxides or SOx NOx, and carbon monoxide, the major components which we usually assess to understand the quality of air pollution. So these are the six components which are being assessed. And if you look at them, see PM 2.5 and PM10, and they are much, much higher than what is actually recommended for a normal breathing. And coming to Varanasi, you see the state air pollution level is very, very unhealthy. Yesterday, day before yesterday, we have just seen the Dev Deepavali thing, and all over in Varanasi we had lots and lots of diyas and patakas and many things coming over, which was a very good celebration, a big celebration. But today, when we look at a couple of days hence, we still see the air pollution level to be very, very unhealthy. So the question is that the main pollutant is what we look at the main consideration for air pollution and what should be brought into within the limits. So the two major things which we find is particulate matter, which is PM, and PM is one is PM10 and other is PM2.5. The PM10 is a coarse type of a thing, means it's little thick, it's little rough, it is slightly larger, and it cannot enter your lungs. But it is this PM2.5, which is very, very crucial, because this can enter your lungs, it can and it is this which causes most of the respiratory illnesses and the health hazards and even death. So it is important to bring PM 2.5 below or within the permissible limits so that the air quality indices improve. This is the latest statistics of what we see. I was just talking about 7 million deaths all over, but we see if we look at in Southeast Asian region, over 2 million people die of air pollution. Similar is the case in Western Pacific, about 1 million in African region, and roughly 500,000 in Eastern Mediterranean European region. So what are the major illnesses? Strokes, which is of course brain strokes, what we look at, heart diseases, lung cancer, and chronic and acute respiratory diseases, including asthma, which is also today related to COVID respiration. So that is again what we find is very, very important to address. All this brings about the necessity to have some kind of regulation. Because if we don't have a regulation, we keep on as a human being, human beings are very greedy people. They do not look at what their need is, what their future generation requires, or what could be the best and the minimal use. So today what we are looking at, that we have to minimize it so that there has to be less air pollution, and for that some regulatory measures are important. So if we look for the air quality regulations, it is very important to protect and enhance air quality. We all know, if it is, you must have felt many times that when you go and there is a lot of fog and smog, you start having problem in breathing, you don't have clarity of vision, and that is how in this smog, when you are breathing, this is going and settling inside your lungs. So protect and enhance air quality will help you have a better air, and so that you can breathe in a better manner, you can protect your lungs. Similarly, protect and promote human health and public welfare, which I am talking about. Control at state and local level, very, very important aspect. I was just showing you the statistics of Lucknow, which was at the state capital, and what at Varanasi, which is local. So when we talk about state, we are talking about the entire UP region, but when we talk about local, we are talking about Varanasi. And to control air pollution at each of these sites is very, very important, because we have to understand one thing, that pollution which is happening here, the air which is being burned here, the pollution which is their level of carbon dioxide which is in the atmosphere here at Varanasi will not remain at Varanasi. It will travel, and it travels with the air and in the direction of the wind which is blowing. So it travels. So whatever pollution we are creating, it travels to somewhere closer by area. So actually, when we are measuring the air quality index now, it is showing us the air quality parameter of what is happening here at Varanasi, but it is not going to stay here. It is going to travel. It can go to nearby Mirzapur, Chunar, other areas, depending on the wind direction. So every place is important to control the air so that whatever air is traveling all around us does not further complicate the situation or cause pollution at the different levels, even to our farmers, even in our villages, and so on. So this will reduce the significant risk to human health and the environment, and of course help understand also the risk-based priorities. Say, for example, I'll just give you one example. When we talk about any disaster, we talk about the management of, say, an epidemic like COVID. What we are trying to see at that minimum airflow in an area which is left contaminated. People should not gather together so that they don't breathe in that same atmosphere again and again, and each one of them can get COVID or get infected. So that kind of regulation can be set as a norm for every individual, for a human being to follow, so that the persons don't fall risk and the epidemic or the pollution risk can be contained in a certain manner. I'm not going in that, but there has been a whole history of air quality regulations, and each time there are amendments that have been coming up just to control air pollution. But unfortunately, till now, we haven't been able to contain it much, except for something in the Motor Vehicles Act, where we have now, Eco 1, Eco 2 types of the high level or fourth generation, fifth generation machines, the engines, which have now started less polluting or producing or lead-free fuel and so on. So I will not go in that. National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring, mainly 4 pollutants are monitored. I was just showing you the list. That was 6: PM sulfur dioxide, that is SOx, NOx, ozone, and of course respirable suspended particulate matter, which is RSPM, PM10 and PM2.5. This is a very, very important slide, and I would like all the students to understand this slide. It is very important. The reason being that when we talk of air quality index, every day, every newspaper, on the internet, everywhere, air quality index is floated. But do we understand what actually this air quality index means? So this chart actually shows us that what air quality index is about. So you see here, there is a whole category which starts from good to severe. And we see 0 to 100 ranges, 51 to 100, 101 to 200. These are the measures. How this measurement is taken out? For all these parameters, 24 hours monitoring, except for ozone and carbon monoxide, 24 hours monitoring is carried out for all these at a given space, at a given place. And then when this monitoring goes on, then if these levels are below this standard, then we say that the air quality index is good and the place is healthy. But if it comes under satisfactory, that means any of these parameters would be in this range or slightly below, or 1 or 2 can be of the same good standard, but others may not meet the required permissible limits. So that is how you have the different categories, and we start concerning or it is a matter of much concern when it goes to moderately polluted. Because if satisfactory and good is there, then the human physiology can adjust to it to a certain extent, and you can still have good air quality to breathe. But if we look at moderately polluted, poor, very poor, and severe, then these are really a matter of severe concern, because they can lead to severe chest diseases, respiratory diseases, and many other health effects. What are the associated health effects? I have been talking about some of them, but just coming quickly to moderately polluted, asthma and discomfort, heart and lung diseases, uh, especially in children and older adults. Then poor, causing discomfort, prolonged diseases, exposure, many things affect there. Very poor respiratory illness to people on prolonged exposure, again, and severe, of course, many types of diseases, including even under very light exercise, the person start breathing very heavily. It is basically the air pollution when we talk about, it's basically a triangular type of a problem when we look at. It is the photochemical smog, which is coming from the ground level ozone, primary pollutants being the volatile organic carbons, NOxes, secondary pollutants, ozone, parasitonetra, organic aerosols, and so on, particulate matter, PM10 2.5, and acid deposition. So all these three are related. Once this is high in the atmosphere, that is PM10 and PM 2.5, it has to settle down gradually onto the ground. And when it settles down into the ground, it settles as acid rain because it gets in contact with the water vapor, it combines with SOx and NOx. And what happens is that whatever settled down is either nitric acid or sulfuric acid. So we have acid rain. And in similar manner, photochemical smog is formed in the atmosphere. So both the reactions are more or less similar, except that one can precipitate down onto the earth in the form of an acid and remain suspended into the atmosphere in the form of photochemical smog, which are both again very, very harmful because it affects the ozone layer also. If we look at another aspect, that is black carbon, this term also might be mentioned in many of the books which young students are referring to. This black carbon is now what we are very much concerned about as an environmentalist. The reason being that this black carbon is originated by half combustions, or let's say incomplete combustion of anything. So diesel engines account for about 25% or all of all black carbon emissions. And that is why you must have heard very recently that many of the automobile industries now they are switching over from the diesel system to the either electric or into the petrol system. And diesel has become more expensive also that way to curb use of such kind of vehicles. Another very interesting slide, that which particular matter or which component of the air affect the health. So if we look at this, if you see PM10, and this slide actually shows how fine these particles are. So you see less than or 0.01 millimeter, less than 10 microns is PM10, and PM 2.5 is less than 2.5 microns. So it is such a fine particle that it is less than human hair. Human hair has a thickness of 50 to 70 microns, and it is less than that, it is less than 2.5 microns. So it can very easily enter into the alveoli or the lungs alveolar system, causing irritation of eyes, nose, throat, breathing because of ozone, PM, SOx, NOx, and so on, headache, anxiety, cardiovascular diseases, liver, spleen, and blood impact on them, even impacts on the reproductive system, and also on the respiration, which we have been talking about again and again. This is how it functions. What we see is this is the lungs anatomy, and this is a normal human lung, right and the left lobes. And what we see is the bronchiole. This is how they are spread. Most of the students must be aware of this kind of a picture because they have seen it in their science books. So you see, you are truncated two branches, and this is all the lung system. And bronchiole and alveoli are these small spots, alveolar sacs, which are actually exchanging carbon dioxide and oxygen and giving to the heart and taking it to the heart. And this oxygen exchange takes place in alveoli. And in this process of oxygen exchange, actually all the air pollutants enter into our lungs, and they travel via lymph or blood to different organs, causing different diseases. How can we control it? Because it is very important. The problem we understand now much better than what we used to understand earlier. But the thing is how to control it. So for the young students, it is very important to have urban trees for better air quality. If we go all around Varanasi, what we find, very few trees in the city. It is very important to have or develop a city in a manner that we have trees which shade buildings, which reduce the air conditioning, reduce fossil consumption. Then we have trees which absorb small particulate matter from the air, and they should be planted in such a way that it shall be either on the crossings, or it should be on the side of the road, so that whatever vehicle is passing by, whatever PM 2.5 is being generated, that should be trapped by these trees. Healthy trees have the greatest per tree effects at pollution removal. They can capture, they can improve the neighborhood air quality. And this is how it should be, in a way, presented in an urban city like Varanasi. This will also reduce the heat island effect. What we look at, two buildings, and in between these buildings, you have a very hot zone, which is called as the heat island, because of lack of flow of air, and at the same time, no greenery in that area. So to remove that kind of a condition, we need to reduce the heat island effect. That is a sudden change in the temperature between 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Temperature range. And that's how, if we can look at it, by redesigning cities to function like forests, that is the best way we can do to curtail the air pollution. Of course, this will help in all ways, like improving water quality, community aesthetics, recreation, and many other things. A very modest model which is proposed for redesigning cities to function like forests. And in Jharkhand, very recently, they have come up with one such kind of a new innovative project, where they have created the jungle-like situation in the main city, and it's worth going and seeing, visiting, to understand how it can be done. Technology changes. I was just mentioning about the machines, for example, automobiles. So we can have engine modifications, exhaust gas recirculation, catalytic after treatment, and so on. Some technologies which can help significantly emission reduction. Hedges and trees which can remove air pollutants, very important. I was telling you that it travels. So when it travels, it flows from one direction to the other. So if we have crossroad winds from one direction from where the vehicle is passing to the other side, what we can do is that whatever pollution is being generated by this vehicle here is traveling actually in this direction. And if we have a whole range of trees here, it can block it. At this particular breathing height, you have a clear air, the PNC, PM1, PM2.5, PM10, and so on. So you can have a reduced concentration as compared to what is here. So that kind of hedges and trees should be planted at that particular height. The problem is that we do plant trees. We do plant, ask children, plant tree here, plant tree there, put more plants. We should have plants, but we don't tell them what kind of a plant it should be there, what should be the height, the herb, the shrub, what level it should cater to, what is our breathing height, and at which level we want that the air quality should be good. All these things students need to be told, because then they will understand that, say for example, if people tree goes for 20 feet height, it is the 20 feet area which we are trying to look at to curb the air pollution. If we have small trees, like for example harshingar or parijat at home, or even palm trees at home, then we need to know what should be the height so that it can be cured. When we are having urban plantation like avenues which are being planted, we need to know what is the concentration range or the change what we are looking at by the height of the plants, and that can be very nicely and well regulated in good colonies and in places where we actually want to place them. And some specific types of plants also we can select. Say for example, species of ficus can be used at different places, and there are many other such plants which can be used. These are some of the trees for indoor and outdoor plants for ambient air quality. And if the students want, they can write it down, some of them, or they can later on see from it. You can see that we have all cassias and bargad, kaner, and rain tree. Most of these plants which are available here in our belt, they are indigenous plants from Varanasi, most of them. And here you see the indoor plants, which are now very often we see that put some plants inside the house to control the air quality inside the house. So indoor air to maintain. So we have these whole list, and there is a very long list actually, but this is just a cut short vision to just let the students understand that you can have this kind of a plantation at home inside your house also, if you cannot have a plantation outside. Apart from this, many of us do talk about the air quality index which is outside the house, but we never talk about the air quality index which is within our premises, within our household. Many of us live in, these, how to say, these multi-storied buildings. We live in flats. So the inside, the indoor air quality index is equally important as the outdoor air quality index. That means that if we go outside and we breathe in good quality air and you come back inside the house and then you breathe in, so how is it going to help you? So to help that, it is important that you have both these air qualities well maintained. And inside the house, because you must have realized in the COVID period, most of the time we are at home. All of us are inside the house. So if we are all inside the house, say 90% of the time, then it is very important to have the inside air quality index very well controlled. And this we don't talk about very often. The reason being that we are not that aware of it. So it is important to look into this and how we have it. These are some of the environments which we are very often addressing when we talk about the indoor or the outdoor. You see the school environment, inside the school classroom, how is it like in the daycare systems, workplace, outdoors, and of course inside our houses. So all these basements, bathrooms, the different multiple air environments we are living in, which we don't realize. The kitchen will have a different kind of an air environment as compared to our bathroom or a bedroom. So all these air quality indices inside the house is equally important as we compare to the outdoor air pollution. And to assess that what kind of an air pollution we can have at home, I'll just give you some of the marks. If there is a patient of asthma or anyone who is coughing or sneezing, just address these 6 questions. Says, is there a pet inside the house? Are there signs of pest, any infestation in any part of home? Is there any visible mold? Visible mold means that some places, the water keeps on trickling from the wall and you don't realize, and gradually it starts getting some fungus infection which is there as patches and you don't realize it is a fungus. Smoke or live with a smoker. I mean, you can be a passive smoker or you can be an actual smoker. So if there is smoke at home, wood burning stove, fireplace, if these are there, and unvented stoves or heater, that means which does not have a vent for the gases to pass away into the atmosphere. If these conditions are there, then your house is very much affected to or expected to have less air quality index or not a very healthy air quality. So in that case, you need to look at that, like for animal allergens, dust mites, more fungi, tobacco smoke, volatile organic compounds like hair sprays. आजकल सब किसी को वो hair spray लगा करके और वो gel और set करने का, cooking sprays का, even perfumes का. If you don't have a very good quality perfume, they will also stay into the air environment in the form of aerosols, and it is going to affect you. So all these things, kerosene, wood stoves, heaters, कहते हैं ना बहुत समय तक blower के सामने नहीं रहना चाहिए, because these heaters also cause this kind of a problem. They may cause to you. Even carpets, cooking sprays, odors, tobacco smoke, all these contribute toward your air quality inside your house. Molds, of course, very, very important because they are very highly allergic to, especially to young children. If you have small kids, you have to be very, very specific about this kind of a thing, because if they develop an allergy right from the very beginning to such kind of um, uh, molds and fungi, then it is very difficult for them as they grow up to get over it. So it's important to look at these aspects, beneath the carpets, wood surfaces, insulation materials, inside the ducts. Many of us now stay in houses which is having centralized ACs. So in that, bathroom tiles, in between the wedges, if any fungal infection or fungi you can see, if you see a lot of fruit flies, you should look into it. See, this is just one to show that dead air space is there or how ventilation. So this happens usually in old buildings where there are, less maintained buildings. So if you have any this kind of a patchy thing, or you add a good humidifier, change the habits, get it cleaned up, at least get it painted so that it doesn't get into your body, into your lungs, into your family members. Of course, smokes and gases, we all know. It has to be volatile organic compounds. I would like to talk a little bit about it because volatile organic compounds are part of paints. And if we see many of us very often, even after painting the house for 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, you still have the this odor of the paint very strong, or it is burning your eyes very strong. So this is because of the presence of this volatile organic compounds. And this again is a source of air pollution inside the household. So it needs to be looked into even after pest control. If you get done, then you should also look at, and you should see that it should become dry, and open the windows and doors so that it easily goes away. And now VOC free paints are available. So it's good to have VOC free paints for your household if you are using it, so that you don't have this kind of problem if you have elderly people at home or if you have children at home. Tobacco smoke, again, very harmful. Sometimes how we clean up. Now, suppose we have it already. So how do you look at it that we can improve the air quality inside? So you can have vacuuming, you can do the vacuum cleaning, damp mopping. Air conditioning during warm weather is recommended for asthma patients. This I don't think so many people tell. But AC during warm weather is recommended for asthma patients. The reason being that then it filter off the mycotoxins, or what we see, the molds. Dehumidifiers and HEPA filters, which are of course a high quality filter for airborne cat dander mold spores. That happens in very specific cases. Uh, this is just one example to show that what kind of a ventilation it should be there all over. This is a school actually, which we see here at the back, and you see this big large ventilation system which is placed in between, so that all air which is following that can go through natural ventilation towers outside, along with the solar chimney, which is of course lightening, giving full light to the household. Another very important part, which is not so often again talked about when we talk about air pollution, but I would like to mention here, because each one of us are now living in a virtual age. Our children, everyone, all the time, they are either with their laptops, either with their mobile phones, and they are all having classes online. Due to this pandemic condition, we have to take classes like that. It is unavoidable. So what we are trying to have is, all of us are surrounded by gadgets, and these gadgets are doing what? They are having a lot of electromagnetic radiations. So what we need to look into is that once our children have completed their classes, or our students who are taking the classes, they, every child should take care that he or she should be away from their mobile phone, from apart from when they are using it for their study purpose only. The reason is that too much of use of electromagnetic radiation, and हम सब जानते हैं इस समय जिसके यहाँ दो बच्चे हैं तो हर घर में चार चार पांच पांच मोबाइल एक बार में चल रहा है. And all these 4 or 5 mobiles together is causing such a lot of electromagnetic radiation that your house looks something like this. It has radiation in this room from one mobile, radiation in another room from another mobile, and from third room from another mobile. So what is happening is that your house is surrounded by magnetic sensitivity. And this electromagnetic radiations, they are causing a lot of pollution, because they create signs of electromagnetic sensitivity like cold, flu, swellings, burning, warm sensation, then pains in teeth, jaw, extreme dryness in skin, nausea, headaches, palpitation, and so on, even memory losses. Many people are suffering from tingling and pricking sensations, in their body, in their foot, pains and aches through joints and muscles. So these are some of the consequences of electromagnetic radiations. And if we are not cautious now, it will become very difficult for us later on to come over it. So this needs to be looked into by all of us. Whoever are listening to my talk, I will request each one of you to please be away from your mobile or your laptops or your gadgets, and use them only and only when you have to take your classes. Otherwise, you keep away from it. Try to use as many books and pencils you can so that you can be healthy, you can stay healthy, and you can carry on your studies once the schools are full-fledged open and you can go to the grounds. So it's very important to keep yourself safe and then have a healthy study time also. This I am just trying to show you. See, we started with electricity way back in 19 and early 90s, that's 19th century it started. And then in 1920, radio wireless, and then we moved on to radar and television and computers. And then you see, with that, what has started happening? Diseases have started coming in. Cancer started, then radio wave sickness started, then screen dermatitis started, then cancer again, miscarriages, cell phone, brain tumors have started, EHS, and so on. So you see, with more and more radiations as it has increased in 2000 and today in 2020, we have many more, this 8G and so on and so many things. So what is happening is we are increasing our electromagnetic exposure and inviting us to many more diseases with time. Some of the biological effects of extremely low frequency, which is coming from radio frequency, from your phones, as I've just told you. And I, I would only say that at times when I think over it, I just ask myself a question. Are we that weak that we cannot look into these problems? Are we not that strong that we can take a stand and have only what we actually need? So this is something which is what we need to debate today. If we have to curb down not only air pollution, but any type of pollution in this matter. With COVID, I will say keep wearing masks. Wearing masks is a good habit, good practice, because then you are only getting fresh air and nothing else. So that's very important. Keep yourself safe, stay indoors, keep a watch on your air quality index inside the house, and at the same time, be away from your mobile phones, or let's say in a way, be with them only when it is required essentially. So with these words, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I will be very happy to address. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shah, for that such a beautiful, such an exhaustive, and such an informative presentation on air quality index. The reason why we invited you, why we requested you to do this for the students is often, many a times, our kids learn things at school, but sometimes they are not able to relate those subjects to real life situations. And we thought this is a subject which really, it is important today because of the severe air pollution we are facing today, because of the pandemic. And I'm sure the things that you have covered in the presentation, it will give a whole new perspective to the students. The way you have covered the subjects, the width and the depth of air pollution, how the VOCs affect us, how the molds affect us. We were not even thinking that these things can affect our health. And then how you shared what we mean when we say the air quality is severe, what we mean when we say the air quality index is 300 or 400. We read it in the news, but most of us don't realize how much effect it can have on our health. So you really have covered all that needs to be known to a common man about these things. And I really cannot thank you enough for presenting this to us. Uh, I'll request the coordinators from the school, as Dr. Shah has suggested, if you can take a printout of the air quality index chart and probably put in the classrooms, so that will really help the students understand it better. There are many other slides which probably we'll see if we can share later, which can in themselves, for example, Dr. Shah mentioned about the particulate matters, how the PM 2.5 is so much more important than the PM 10, and we can reduce the PM 10 through trees, but PM 2.5 can really reach our lungs. So these are the kinds of awareness we really wanted our students to be, if we can communicate this to them. Thank you so much, Dr. Shah, for bringing that to us. And if any of the students who have any questions, we can probably take a few questions here. Maybe the coordinators can help us help students with some questions, and we will pose them to Dr. Shah.
I can see, Umang, there are a couple of questions in the chat box. So maybe if you can address that.
Yes, yes, sure. I was just going through the chat box and I can see some comments. Uh,
There's one question I can see. Are electromagnetic waves released always or when these devices are on?
So I'm not
That's one question by Aviral Jaiswal.
sure, ma'am. I'm unable to see that question,
Yeah,
but
because
if
it's
you're
been
able to
sent to
share
me directly.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
All
sure.
right, so I'll just address that question. Yes, electromagnetic waves are released most of the time, but when the devices are on and they are close to you, then only they affect you very much. So if you switch it on and if you leave it at a distance away from you, then it is not going to affect you that much, but it will be there in your surroundings. And remember, all the time electromagnetic radiations are in the surroundings. It is coming even from the sun, so it is there all the time. But only thing is that when we are using these devices, then we are enhancing their power, and as a result we are concentrating them all around us. So this is why it needs to be looked into very importantly. There's another question, what is PM2.5? It is asked by Aryan Sagar. I see that question here.
Yes.
So, well, Aryan, PM2.5 is actually the particulate matter, what we say is the respirable particulate matter. And this is actually of three types. One is PM10, other is PM2.5, and one is PM1. There are three types of particulate matter. So PM10 is a very coarse or the thickest one of all. That is, if we say we have three beads of three different sizes, the thickest one is PM10. PM10 means it's about 10 microns in size. Then we say PM2.5, it is 2.5 or less than 2.5 microns in size. And PM1 is less than 1 micron in size. So PM2.5 and PM1 is not visible through our naked eyes. We cannot see them. But PM10 to certain extent, we can experience it as dust. So that is what we see. And so PM2.5 and PM1 can enter our lungs. And it is these are the two which are very important to be curbed down if we have to look at the or improve the air pollution. So I think
Just to add, Dr. Shah,
this will be.
you mentioned a very good point in the presentation. Just to give a reference, a human hair is 50 to 70
Yes,
microns, and
yes.
this is just 2.5 macrons. That will help students give a reference how small these particles
How
are.
these, exactly, how small these are. So, and then there are
Yes, another very
a couple of
interesting
more
question is there
questions. Is
how
there
we
any
can.
more?
Yes,
There is
there
a
is an interesting
question
question how
by
to check air quality
Priyanka
index.
Chakrabarti asking how to check air quality index inside the house.
Hmm. Uh, you all are using mobile gadgets, right? So in mobiles, there is a app where you can look at the air quality index inside your house. So you can just measure the SOx, NOx, and of course the PM2.5 and PM1. But I tell you one thing, that when we look at the air quality index inside the house, many a times you will not be able to get the clear view of it, because you don't have that sophisticated instrument. This is just a measurement, like we have a temperature outside, or temperature, humidity, relative humidity. That again you can measure it through your mobile apps. I will later on, maybe I will share that, and then you can circulate it among the students,
Sure,
Thank you,
sure,
that
Dr.
app, so you can easily look at it.
sure, ma'am.
Another very interesting question has come by Shaurya Shantanu.
Okay.
And the student has asked, there are lots of air purifiers, so why don't we use it at large scale? I'll add to this question. I
Hmm.
also always used to feel this, whether we should be using, it is advisable to use air purifiers all the time in the houses, because does that adversely affect our immunity? Because if the kids are always using clean air inside the house, but they when they move out, that is not so clean. So how advisable is using air purifiers, and do they really help us when it comes to pollution inside the house?
Yes, a very good question, and a very pertinent one too. See, the air purifiers are used for those contaminations which are going to be fatal. And that is why air purifiers are used in high standard laboratories, from where we need to know that, yes, if anything goes out of it, then you are going to have infections at a large scale. So air purifiers are usually not suggested for a general use. We don't use air curtains, we don't use air purifiers for our general use. We use it in hospitals, we use it in places where there can be infections. And so to avoid other people from getting infected, you use them. So that is the recommended way. You can use air purifiers to certain extent, but if you continuously use it, you lose on your immunity. So it is important not to use it continuously. And for the kids, the best thing is to play in the sun. Play in the sun and sand. That is what I say. Sun and sand is the best thing for them to have the good immunity, to play outside and be healthy. That's the best way to do it rather than having an air purifier and staying indoor.
And
So
no
this is
radiation
very, very important. Yeah.
and
And
no
the more they play in the sand, the more healthy they are. If you ask your children to do gardening, even in a pot at your residence, I'm telling you, their immunity will increase 10 folds than what they are, because the soil has healthy microbes. These healthy microbes help to increase your immunity once you are doing, digging them or playing with them or doing sowing or even, potting the plant, which we don't realize, but they come inside us and then they help us as a healthy microbe. So it's very, very important to go for gardening. And that is why outdoor playing, being in the sun, being in the sand, at the beaches is very, very important to increase the
maybe
immunity.
maybe that will also bring kids closer to the trees, and they will like to plant more trees. That will also directly bring down the pollution.
Yeah, sure, sure. Because that also connects you to nature directly. So human connect to nature will make it more emotionally also, attached to it. So it's important to be emotionally someday. Then only you can do justice to your ecosystem.
There are a couple of more questions. If time allows, can we address them?
Quickly,
Yeah.
maybe we can just go ahead.
Somebody from Sunbeam School, Mughal Sarai, yeah, Priyanshi. Priyanshi is asking why trees absorb the air pollutants as they can harm the trees as well.
Good question, Priyanshi, I would say. Uh, See, the trees absorb the pollutants not as a pollutant. Trees have a very good capacity to absorb these pollutants and to transform them into productive elements. Like if we absorb these pollutants, we cannot convert them into a productive unit. Say, for example, a healthy unit like a hormone or a secondary metabolite or something which can be given from, taken away from us like that. But trees have that capacity. And that is why they are the universal producers, because they can not only take up carbon dioxide is also toxic. So they take up carbon dioxide and they give us food. In the similar manner, they take most of the pollutants. So it is not that they absorb pollutants only for its removal, but also that they can take in pollutants, hold them for some time, and transform them into some other, either the less toxic form, or they can convert them into some productive form. And this is why trees can easily take up these pollutants, which we cannot. So if we have to look at the most evolved system in the world, then the most evolved system after the microbes, microorganisms, is the tree or our plants, and then we. So we are the weakest and we are the most greedy ones. So we have to look at that. Okay.
So that's a very interesting perspective, Dr. Shah. And I can see very, very interesting questions being posed by the students. You're also seeing the questions. One of the students has asked whether we can use a large air purifier for Delhi. For so, like we can have nuclear power generators, so we can have something like a nuclear air purifier. Which
I will give you one example. Very, very interesting question, though it is there. I had been to Shanghai, and there, in the middle, as I was telling you, it should be placed at the crossings. So in the middle of the crossings, what they have done is they have constructed artificial trees, and they are huge trees, large trees, which are constructed of silicon and many other pockets, where this PM 2.5, PM 10 can be absorbed and come into the solution with that. So it is continuously being removed from the atmosphere as the vehicles are passing by, and it's an artificial tree which is converted, which is developed there, beautifully developed, It will look like a landscaping, but actually it is serving. So some of these kind of things also need to be, our innovations need to go in that direction also, that we can have both the aesthetic sense, at the same time we can have some pollution curbers also with us. So I think that's it.
There is one more question. I think we can just treat it as the last question. And if anyone has any further questions, they can reach out to their, class teacher, and through the school, maybe the professor can get in touch with you and, address their answers. But the last question I would like to address is radioactive radiations are not visible and it can affect us very badly. So how to identify it? Like in the Chernobyl incident, people weren't aware of the radiation, and that caused the abandonment of the city and the death of many people.
Hmm.
So,
Uh, See, the first and foremost thing when I say electromagnetic or radioactive radiations, they will start causing you skin itchings. If in any area the radioactive waves are high, then in that case the first symptom which you, because our skin is the first line of defense, so what you will have is that initially it will come to your skin only. You will start having itchings, you will start having redness of the skin, irritation, a lot of irritation in your eyes and so on. So with that you can look into whether you can go for radioactive these waves measurements or not, because as soon as you will ask your doctor about these things, the first thing he will say is that whether you look into the radioactive radiations near your area. And the more important thing is that the radioactive radiation which reaches us from the atmosphere, from the natural environment, is not that let's say bad for us. It's not that bad for us. The reason is that it is coming, traveling a long distance, and at the same time it is the angle of incidence at which it is falling that makes any radiation hazardous or not. So it's important to understand that. And sun, we know, as it is moving, it is changing its direction, the angle of incidence. And with this albedo, we are having different kinds of electromagnetic radiations at a different level, which is coming to us. So it's not going to be harmful. It's all around us. It becomes very, very harmful when it is highly toxic, in the case when it can cause skin cancers, it can lead to skin lesions, and so on. And in that case, it depends from person to person how physiologically the person is fit to address that particular type of radioactive radiation. The most important thing is radioactive radiation you cannot get anywhere and everywhere. Contained type of a radiation, highly contained. You cannot have a radioisotope, simply giving you radiation anywhere. It happens only because of a leakage somewhere. It happens because of a big reactors where there can, like we know of Chernobyl, we know of many other places like that where we can have such reactors. And these reactors can then may lead to radioactive isotopes being leaked, and the radioactive radiations to come into. And they themselves have gauging systems, to look into it, how much it is going into the water or it is going into the reaction system. So you don't have to worry about it directly. But this is something which we need to look into. If you are having skin lesions, use sunscreens, because sunscreens are going to protect you from this kind of radiations. So use a lot of sunscreen if you are sensitive to it. And then, of course, you can have consult your doctor.
thank you, Dr. Shah. I think with this, we would like to conclude the session. Just one more thing. Some students want to know that if they want to reach out to you, do you have like a page or something where they can, probably follow you or interact with you in case they have any further
They
questions?
can send me a mail and
Right,
I will be happy to answer, no problem.
right.
Or even they can send me a WhatsApp at this number. If you can create a group WhatsApp, I think it's better they send it through mail so that they can get an answer easily. It will be directly addressed to them. And the other thing is that all the coordinators, if the coordinators can collect the set of questions, I can always give an answer to it, and they can be shared.
I think that will be easier
That will
to,
be better.
but yeah. So, yeah, I think we will conclude the session. And once again, I would like to thank Sunbeam School Mughal Sarai. I would like to thank Shweta Kanodia Bhabi for giving us the opportunity to connect with the students and to host this wonderful session. Smriti ma'am, would you like to just say a few words? Ma'am, you can Smriti ma'am, can you? I think she's not able to hear me. She's not able to unmute. Okay. So,
Yes, Dhaval Bhaiya, good afternoon. It
good
was
afternoon.
indeed a wonderful session, and we really look forward to many more initiatives like this because it's a great opportunity, a great learning for the children. And we really had some very nice questions, interesting questions, because these are very intriguing questions. They are in the minds of the children, and if they get such opportunities, they can always put forward those questions. So, thank you, Kavita ma'am. When the things are normal and the children are back in the school, we would request you with folded hands to visit our school once and talk to the children because it will really satiate their inquiry level and they will gain with your vast experience.
No, no,
Thank
it
you, ma'am.
will be my pleasure, certainly.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, so in the
Over to
end,
you, Priya.
I would like to personally thank Dr. Kavita Shah. Ma'am, you've given us a very good overview of not just the air quality index, but so many other aspects related to it. And after going through the session, I think it's time that we all, pause at certain moments in our life and we realize whether we need this particular device or whether we need to do this, particular thing in our life or not, because we knowingly or unknowingly we don't realize certain things affect us in such a manner which have a very long lasting effects on our bodies. So thank you once again, thank you so much everyone for joining in, and we will try our best to keep coming back with such more sessions to keep you updated with the latest information. Thank you once again. uh,
Uh,
Sign off.
Dhaval Bhaiya, at the end, can I ask the children to come on a video on mode so that we can have some pictures?
Yes, that would be great.
Children, children, can you all come on video on mode for 2 minutes so that we can have some good pictures, some memories created
Will
of
it
the
be able
event?
to capture a screenshot of all the participants together showing? Is that possible? You can do it?
Yes. Children, quickly. Good. Thank you, children.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you on behalf of Varanasi
thank you so
Roundtable
much.
196.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shah. Thank you so much for being with us today.